Hello and welcome. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up over the next hour. Donald Trump to be sworn in as the 47th US President shortly, likely to sign multiple executive orders on day one, ranging from addressing the cost of living to immigration. TikTok is back online in America after Trump pledges to restore it. Says would like the US to have a 50% ownership position in a joint venture. Relief and joy as Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners reunite with their families after the ceasefire coming into effect. And a Kolkata court in India sentences a man to life in prison for the rape and murder of a junior doctor. But it's all building up to the Donald Trump inauguration, and President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill have welcomed President-elect Donald Trump and Melania Trump to the White House after a service at St. John's Episcopal Church. It's been an inauguration day tradition for the President-elect, Vice President-elect and their spouses to visit the White House, where the President-elect and the outgoing President hold a brief meeting. So Donald Trump is set to be inaugurated as the 47th US President later tonight in a star-studded event that will be attended by a galaxy of foreign dignitaries, including India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. The inaugural event was supposed to take place in front of the Capitol, but was shifted indoors due to the freezing weather conditions in the wake of an Arctic blast. Along with Trump, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance will also take the oath of office, following which Donald Trump will deliver his inaugural address. And Trump has vowed to issue a flurry of executive orders on Inauguration Day in a shock and awe blitz. A major target will be addressing the cost of living crisis, but he's also set to roll back many of his predecessors' policies, including those on immigration, energy, environment and diversity. More details in this report.
Joe Biden leaves behind a mixed legacy as U.S. president. Under him, the immigration crisis ballooned. His decision to offer citizenship to 500,000 undocumented immigrants married to U.S. citizens just months before the presidential polls sparked a political row. His push to ensure gender-affirming health care only deepened the divisions in American society. To promote clean energy, Biden imposed restrictions on domestic oil drilling. All these policies are expected to be reversed by his successor Donald Trump, that too on his inauguration day. He will do so by issuing executive orders. Issued unilaterally by the President, executive orders do not require congressional approval and often come into effect immediately. But they can be overturned by the Congress and challenged in the court of law. Prominent executive orders that Trump is expected to issue include lifting restrictions on fossil fuel production and exiting the Paris Climate Agreement, declaration of a national border emergency, which would direct the military and Department of Homeland Security to secure the US-Mexico border, where the construction of a border wall is expected to restart. His actions would give more power to officers to clamp down on illegal immigrants. He has also promised to end birthright citizenship. This will affect immigrants, as their children born in the US won't get citizenship automatically. In a bid to boost domestic manufacturing, Trump has vowed to impose 10% tariffs on all imports. The percentage would be higher for goods from Canada, Mexico, and China. He also said he will pardon people convicted or charged in connection with the storming of the US Capitol on January 6, 2021. Trump has also promised to reverse the ban on Chinese app TikTok, adding that he'd like the US to have a 50% ownership in a joint venture. Classifying drug cartels as foreign terrorist groups is also on the agenda. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, Donald Trump's imminent inauguration will complete his triumphant comeback after surviving 2 impeachment trials, a felony conviction, 2 assassination attempts, and an indictment for attempting to overturn his 2020 election loss. Let's take a look at the Republican leader's political journey.
The inauguration of Donald J. Trump as the 47th President of the United States marks a remarkable moment in American history and one of the most extraordinary comebacks in modern politics anywhere. Trump is also only the second president in the 230 plus years of American democracy to have come to power after losing the re-election. In 2021, he skipped the inauguration ceremony of his successor, President Biden, insisting that the 2020 election had been stolen from him. This was the first time in 150 years that any former US president had boycotted the ceremony, making the transfer of power. Trump survived 2 assassination attempts in a period of 2 months, one at a rally in Pennsylvania in July 2024 and another in September while he was golfing in West Palm Beach, Florida. Donald Trump took oath as the 45th President of the United States on January 20th, 2017. During the 2016 primary, Trump defeated more than a dozen rivals to win the Republican nomination. While he lost the popular vote, Trump defeated former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in the general election by winning a majority of Electoral College votes. He used unconventional methods to communicate his priorities. Most notably, he used the social media platform Twitter as a primary mechanism for direct communication with the American public, other politicians, and the press. Trump administration's other domestic priorities included Supreme Court and federal judicial appointments, increased military budgets, aggressive border and immigration control, criminal justice reform, and the reduction of prescription drug prices. During his last term as president, he signed a major tax reform bill into law and oversaw a reduction of federal regulations. His protectionist trade policies included tariffs in foreign aluminum, steel, and other products. The Trump administration also renegotiated trade agreements with Mexico, Canada, China, Japan, and South Korea. In foreign policy, the Trump administration moved the US Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and brokered normalization agreements between Israel and a number of countries. In 2018, President Trump attended a summit with Kim Jong-un, marking the first meeting of a sitting president with a North Korean leader. Raghav Kumar Jha, reporting for DD India.
And few Indian Americans have found a place in the Trump Cabinet 2.0 at various prominent posts. Harmeet K. Dhillon is nominated as the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the Department of Justice. Sriram Krishnan nominated as Senior White House Policy Advisor for Artificial Intelligence, among few others. Here's a report.
US President-elect Donald Trump made several appointments to his cabinet much before taking oath. Strikingly, Trump has picked a handful of Indian Americans for key roles in his incoming administration, highlighting the community's growing influence in US politics. Here are the Indian Americans who will be a part of Trump Cabinet 2.0. Sriram Krishnan, nominated by Donald Trump as a senior White House policy advisor for artificial intelligence. An Indian American entrepreneur with an impressive background in technology. He will collaborate closely with David O. Sachs, who has been named as the White House AI and crypto czar. He will be responsible to shape and coordinate AI policy for the Trump administration. Vivek Ramaswamy, nominated to co-lead the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, alongside Elon Musk. His nomination to DOGE signals a focus on reshaping federal agencies, promoting efficient governance, and revisiting immigration policies. His breakout moment in the primaries came when he proposed bold economic reforms while championing traditional values. Aligning himself with Trump's America First philosophy, Ramaswamy earned a reputation as a pragmatic yet culturally grounded leader. Kash Patel nominated to FBI head. He first gained national attention during Trump's first term, where his work in national security and intelligence reform made him a trusted member of the president elect's inner circle. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, nominated to lead the National Institutes of Health, is a Stanford physician and economist, a respected physician and academic who rose to prominence for critiquing COVID-19 pandemic restrictions. Harmeet K. Dillon, nominated for Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Donald Trump praised the Indian American lawyer as a prominent election lawyer, recognizing her dedication to safeguarding election integrity and defending constitutional and civil rights. She was a legal advisor to his 2020 presidential campaign. She co-chaired the group of lawyers for Trump, which challenged the 2020 presidential election results. Indian Americans playing key roles in the Trump administration highlight the rising stature of India on the global stage. It showcases the growing influence of the world's largest democracy in shaping the future of the United States. Bureau Report, DD India.
And while Trump prepares for his ascendance, US President Joe Biden has issued preemptive pardons on Monday for people Republican successor Donald Trump has targeted for retaliation, including former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Mark Milley and former White House Chief Medical Advisor Anthony Fauci. The pardons also cover all lawmakers who served on the Congressional Select Committee that investigated the 6th of January 2021 storming of the Capitol by Trump supporters and police officers who testified before it. Trump, who is set to return to the presidency, has repeatedly called for the prosecution of his perceived enemies since winning the White House in November. Let me now take you across to my colleague Jessica Taneja, who's been, basically tracking all the developments that have been taking place up to that big moment of the Trump 2.0 inauguration. Jessica, already there's a lot of feelers that this is set to be quite a disruptive day as far as we're talking about Washington, and a night if we talk about New Delhi. But how have things progressed so far?
Well, as you and I speak, Gautam, both President-elect and now would be sworn in just a short while. Donald Trump, along with the outgoing President Joe Biden, are in the same room. If you see through the reports that are coming in from the United States right now, they're headed to the U.S. Capitol. They will be inside the Capitol Rotunda, where the swearing-in ceremonies to begin shortly, and then we'll hear from Trump, which will be his inaugural speech. The situation's not the same. The conditions are not playing fair, especially with the weather outside. It's extremely cold, so Trump doesn't get to see the sea of supporters. Now, back in 2016, it was quite different from the time it is now. But of course, he's going to expect a lot of people in support of the kind of mandate he's been given this time around. So expect people to be very excited, especially after all the ceremonies are over and he interacts and gives his first speech. What his priorities will be, well, we've tried to understand few of those, but a lot of focus is being put on the executive orders, now amounting to approximately 200 of them. And of course, targeting everything from environmental protection to energy security to also trade. And let's not forget the big I, the immigration, the two big I's, immigration and inflation, making it sure that the Americans pay less for the food they put on the table. And of course, on the other hand, the illegal migrants issue is taken care of, especially bringing into force the Remain Mexico policy. Remember that he had enacted in his previous term. So he's going to go tough on those immigration laws as well.
Yes, and as far as the inauguration itself is concerned, a lot of world leaders, India's own External Affairs Minister, as envoy of Prime Minister Modi, is going to be there. But tell us about the other leaders who we can expect, and not just in terms of leaders of nations and governments, but also from the corporate and other fields.
That's correct. Reports also suggested Mark Zuckerberg, as well as, of course, Elon Musk, who's now part of Doge and plays a very important role in the Trump administration. Moving ahead is also there, as has been the case in the past as well. You pointed out India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, the Japanese foreign minister is there, along with the Australian foreign minister, Penny Wong, is also there. Expectations of a Quad foreign ministers meeting as well. But of course, given the kind of significance of Quad, we've seen participation from them. And of course, Argentina's Javier Milei, and of course, Giorgia Meloni, a few key attendees in the Trump inauguration ceremony. And what is important to understand from this key moment here on Gotham is that usually it hasn't been the case that the invitations are sent out for the inauguration of the President of the United States to many other leaders, especially from outside the ambit of the transatlantic influence. But also we've seen Germany's AfD leader along with his wife also present there. So yes, quite a lot of interesting and people on the list which of course weren't part of for many years as it has come to be the tradition of the United States President's inauguration. This time it's slightly different and it's the Trump way, so that's what
certainly, Jessica. And we're all waiting not just for that speech that Donald Trump will make soon after he's sworn in, which will lay out his agenda, but also I'm wondering when he'll have the time to really get those executive orders signed and out.
200 of those got them now.
Yes. You were saying something, Jessica?
Yeah, saying that 200 of those now. So what he plans to prioritize, I hope we're not at the receiving end of that.
Yeah, because he has a busy day ahead as well with some celebration and balls to attend as well, where he again will perhaps make some speeches among his supporters. But let's see how the day pans out, the night here in Delhi, of course. Thanks for joining us for the moment, Jessica. And still to come on the India NewsHour. Tensions escalate as Ukraine and Russia intensify fighting ahead of Trump's inauguration. In Ecuador, 16 presidential candidates face off in their first debate.
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
अब लोन प्रोसेसिंग में इतनी देरी, ये सब ना तुमसे नहीं होगा।
लो तुम ही कर लो।
देखो तुम बोलो ना।
इधर आओ। क्या बात?
फाइनेंशियल एसेट्स का प्रमाण देना है, इस वजह से लोन अटका है।
देखो, अकाउंट एग्रीगेटर से जुड़ो। अकाउंट एग्रीगेटर बैंक इत्यादि के पास उपलब्ध आपकी वित्तीय जानकारी को आपकी स्पष्ट सहमति से ऋण देने वाली वित्तीय संस्थाओं से साझा करता है।
पापा, इट वाज सो इजी।
आरबीआई कहता है,
जानकार बनिए,
सतर्क रहिए।
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who is in Washington, D.C. for the inauguration ceremony of US President-elect Donald Trump, held meetings with his counterparts from Australia and Japan. In a social media post, the minister expressed happiness over his meeting with Japanese Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya. The two leaders reviewed progress in bilateral cooperation and also discussed developments related to the Quad. And in another post, Dr. Jaishankar said he enjoyed his discussion on the state of the world with Australian counterpart Penny Wong. The Quad grouping comprises India, Australia, Japan and the United States. Now, in a major development for social media users in the US, TikTok has begun restoring its services in that country. This comes after President-elect Donald Trump intervened to ensure the popular app remains available for the 170 million Americans who use it. The move follows a series of legal and political challenges, including national security concerns surrounding the app's Chinese ownership. Aarti Rana's report.
As of today, TikTok is back.
TikTok's comeback is the result of behind-the-scenes negotiations between Team Trump and the Chinese tech giant ByteDance, which owns the app. Earlier, TikTok confirmed that it was in the process of restoring service for its US users following a weekend of uncertainty. This all began after President-elect Trump made it clear he wanted to keep the app available to millions of Americans despite national security concerns regarding TikTok's data collection practices. While TikTok has not yet been made available for download, The company is working with service providers to restore full functionality across the platform. In a statement, TikTok expressed gratitude to President elect Trump for his efforts to ensure the platform remains active, but did not address Trump's call for part American ownership of the app. This development comes amid escalating tensions between the US and China. Earlier this week, the Chinese embassy in Washington accused the US government of using unfair state power to suppress TikTok, while also pledging to protect Chinese interests. For years, President Trump has raised concerns about TikTok's parent company ByteDance, but Trump's opinion has shifted in recent months. In the 2024 election, he praised the app for helping him connect with younger voters, even admitting he has a warm spot for the platform.
We'll take a look at TikTok. You know, I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok because I won youth by 34 points. And there are those that say that TikTok had something to do with that. Now, Joe Rogan did, and some of the other people that were recommended by my son Barron, he knew names. I said, who is that? Tell me, who's that? Dad, you gotta be kidding. I can't believe you don't know. And I did those interviews, and it was actually sort of cute. Do you want to know the truth? But we did them, and that had an impact. But TikTok had an impact, and so we're taking a look at it.
Although the future of TikTok in the United States remains uncertain, with talks of a potential sale still looming. In 2020, the Trump administration pushed for a deal where American companies like Oracle and Walmart would acquire stakes in the app. Aarti Rana's report for DD India.
And for now, Donald Trump has arrived at the U.S. Capitol for the inauguration as president. We are tracking that closely. But moving on to the timing, it was a day of overwhelming emotions as 3 Israeli women held hostage for 471 days by the Hamas finally made it back to their families. Israel also released 90 Palestinian prisoners, completing the first exchange under a long-awaited truce aimed at ending more than 15 months of conflict in Gaza. Here's a look at the heartwarming scenes as families on both sides celebrated long-awaited reunions with their loved ones.
It's an unforgettable moment for these hostages. They're thanking their stars today as they have been waiting for this day since long. Emily, Romy and Doron are finally reuniting with their families.
It's a beautiful day. After so long, we got a beautiful day. There is 3 hostages, young hostages returning home.
After being handed over to the Red Cross by Hamas in a crowded Gaza square, the 3 hostages were flown back to safety by Israeli security forces. For their families, this moment is nothing short of a miracle.
I'm excited. I was so nervous just that they will come safe and alive to their mother's hands.
In Tel Aviv, crowds erupted in joy as the news broke. Families and strangers alike hugged, cheered and cried together. For weeks, they had been holding their breath and was waiting for this very moment.
I'm happy to report that they are in stable condition that allows us and them to focus on what is the most important thing for now, is reuniting with their families. They are reunited with their families, and we will continue to monitor their clinical condition.
In return, Israel has released 90 Palestinian prisoners, marking the first steps in this exchange deal. For families on both sides, these reunions are long awaited and deeply emotional. In the West Bank, celebrations filled the air. 2 buses carrying Palestinian prisoners arrived to loud cheers, car horns, and fireworks. Among the freed was 18-year-old Rose Quires, who spoke about her moment of liberation.
We used to see the sky through small squares. I used to say, I hope I will see the sky without these squares. The moment they took us out of prison, I saw the mountains of Carmel and the sky.
This is just the beginning. As part of the historic truce, 33 Israeli hostages taken in Hamas's attack on the 7th of October were to be released in the first phase of the deal. 3 of them have been set free. So for some families on both sides of the border, the wait is over. But for so many others, the fight continues. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin has congratulated US President-elect Donald Trump on taking office hours before Trump's inauguration in Washington, D.C., and said he is open to dialogue with the new US administration on Ukraine and nuclear arms. Putin, who said he wanted to secure a long-lasting peace in Ukraine rather than a short ceasefire, made the comments during a meeting of Russia's Security Council that was shown on state TV. Trump has promised to swiftly end the war in Ukraine, though he has not explained exactly how he would do that. Putin has said before that he is ready for talks, but that Russia's territorial gains and claims must be accepted, something the Ukrainian leadership has rejected as an unacceptable capitulation. And on the front line, Ukraine attacked a Russian-occupied town in the southern Kherson region on Monday, killing 2 people and wounding more than a dozen others. The region's Moscow-installed governor said Ukrainian forces had fired cluster munitions near a school in the town of Bekhteri when students and teachers were on their way to lessons, and that children were among the wounded. Both Russia and Ukraine have ramped up hostilities in recent months, trying to secure the upper hand in the almost 3-year-long conflict ahead of US President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. The attack came as Russian forces advanced further in eastern Ukraine. The Russian Defense Ministry said they had captured 2 more villages, including one just a few kilometers from the Ukrainian-held supply hub of Pokrovsk. Moscow is also pressing into the hilltop city of Chasiv, a frontline stronghold, the capture of which would allow it to drive deeper into the Donetsk region. And now let's take a look at RT's special report from Bithynia as the prisoners were freed by Israel under Gaza ceasefire deal arrived.
First wave of the Israel-Hamas prisoner exchange under the ceasefire deal is now complete. We are near Ramallah at the drop-off location where Palestinian prisoners, now already ex-prisoners, were brought after their release. You can see behind me one of the buses. They were brought in with people on top of this bus, waving Palestinian flags. People around are whistling, singing, there is music, there is celebration, but it wasn't smooth sailing. Hours of anticipating and delays have led to this moment, and what a chaotic day it's been. We follow the events in real time, moving between different locations where prisoners were expected to arrive. At one point, tensions flared when tear gas was fired, scattering the crowd. Hardline settlers in the West Bank also launched attacks on Palestinian homes and cars, protesting the deal. And that the deal started facing delays since the early morning as Hamas missed the initial deadline to provide the list of Israeli hostages. Later, 3 young Israeli women who were held in Gaza for 15 months were finally released, and they were taken to a hospital for medical checks. The Red Cross, who saw the girls first, confirmed their condition as satisfactory, and the deal stipulated that once they were safe, Israel would release 90 Palestinian prisoners, mostly women and minors held for minor offenses. The Ofer prison, the only Israeli jail in the West Bank, became a focal point as detainees were transferred there from all other facilities where the prisoners were held. And outside, including this square, families and friends, and actually just random people waited, again, waving Palestinian flags, singing, dancing and cheering. It's hard to say if the deal will survive to its final phase. Let's see how it plays out.
So that was an RT report from Bithynia in the West Bank. Now, as world leaders, policymakers and industry giants convene in Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum's annual meeting starting today, the spotlight will be on pressing global issues like the Ukraine-Russia war, Trump 2.0 and the rise of artificial intelligence. During the 5-day-long meeting, around 3,000 leaders from over 130 countries will discuss innovative strategies to revitalize growth, harness transformative technologies, empower individuals and communities, protect the planet and drive collaboration. Attendees will include President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, China's Vice Premier and other leaders in business and politics. Davos brings together some 3,000 participants, among whom are investors, business leaders, political leaders, economists, celebrities and journalists for up to 5 days to discuss global issues across 500 sessions. Thus, the WEF has become a forum for various stakeholders to meet and discuss global and regional socio-economic issues. Now, this year's Republic Day parade will not only emphasize military strength, but also celebrate India's rich cultural heritage. Two significant tableaus will be depicting 75 years of the Indian Constitution. 5,000 folk and tribal artists will be performing on the Kartavya Path on the 26th of January this year.
Total number of 77,000, of which 32,000 are ticket holders. The rest are invitees, including 10,000 special invitees. From the military character, we wanted to become increasingly a broader societal, cultural program. So you'll find that we did some 1,500 odd dance performers were there last time, and there was a feedback from the public that most of it was concentrated around the presidential dais, and the rest of the viewing galleries did not get enough of a view. So taking that feedback into account, we've increased the number to over 5,000 this time, so that entire viewing galleries will basically see the same dance performance at the same time.
Kolkata Sessions Court has sentenced prime accused Sanjay Roy to life imprisonment in the RG car rape and murder case. Sessions Judge Anirban Das also held that the state government will have to pay the victim's family a compensation of 17 lakh rupees. Sanjay Roy was declared guilty in the case by the court on Saturday last week. The body of the PGT doctor was recovered from a seminar hall of the RG Medical College on the 9th of August last year. Sanjay Roy was arrested by the Kolkata police the next day. Later, he was handed over to the Central Bureau of Investigation, and the CBI charged Sanjay Roy in the case. All right, let's now talk about the top story that we are tracking today, which is the ascendance of Donald Trump once again to the Oval Office in the US. We're joined by Professor Harshvardhan Pant, Vice President of the Observe Research Foundation. Good evening to you, Professor Pant. The prospect is, well, quite disruptive, it seems, the way Donald Trump's team has said that he could bring out executive orders on the very first day after his inauguration, which could number as much as 200, covering a very wide range of subjects from the cost of living to even well, attacking the diversity-related initiatives that were taken in his predecessor's term.
Yes, I think he's in a hurry. Donald Trump is the president in a hurry. He wants to change in some ways the face of the US in terms of the landmark victory that he achieved. And I think he believes with some accuracy that initial momentum is important, initial days are important to set the agenda for the entire presidency. And because this is likely to be his last chance at the presidency, he would certainly like to have his own imprint on the US. And his supporters have demanded a lot of initiatives from him. So I think it is reasonable to assume that he would use the first few days, in fact, the first few hours of his presidency, to send out a message that he means business. And therefore, we can expect a range of measures through the executive orders that he plans to initiate. And therefore, how disruptive those would be remains to be seen. But certainly, I think on a range of issues, he wants to shake the consensus in Washington. And that would have an impact not only within the US, but also everywhere else.
Yes, and even in his inauguration speech, if we were to compare it to what had happened in 2017, he had Now, at that time, he had talked about very dark, it was a very dark speech. This time, it seems there are indications that he will be upbeat about the whole thing, but at the same time, talk about how he will usher in a new dawn for the US, which will make America great again. That has been a running theme, but how do you think he'll go about it? There is, of course, information coming through that perhaps because there will be a lot of foreign dignitaries there at his inauguration, including our External Affairs Minister, at least triggering another war on the tariff front will kind of be held off, at least for today.
Well, I think it would be interesting because he has, in any case, indicated that that economic issues are going to dominate his agenda, and that he believes that America has been unfairly, treated in some ways, and therefore he would want some kind of a rebalance in the system. Now, whether he targets all the major countries or whether he targets some important ones, that again remains to be seen. But he is sending out these very interesting messages. At one point, he has put in on his cabinet a number of people who have very distinct and very, very sharp views on China. On the other hand, he's saying he has had a very good conversation with Xi Jinping, and that the vice president, has been invited. One of the top leaders from China has been invited. He will be there at the inauguration. He has said that, look, I want to resolve global problems with China. At the same time, one of the first acts of his administration will be to host the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting tomorrow. So I think almost all of this is indicating that he wants to retain leverage in negotiating with the Chinese, and he using all the levers at his disposal to make that argument. And therefore, it is going to be very interesting to watch where the axe falls in the initial few days, in the initial few hours, and how he carves out a policy framework, because ultimately this will determine the trajectory, not only what happens over the next few days, but also what happens over the next 4 years, which is a long trajectory, and for him a historic moment for Mr. Trump to lay out that agenda and to ensure that that agenda is carried forward. So I think there is much that is now that will be shaped by what he does in the first few hours of his presidency.
As you were speaking, Dr. Pant, we're playing out the images of the Capitol Rotunda. These were live images. We could see Sundar Pichai there along with Elon Musk, some tech czars sitting there together, grouped up. And this is where the inauguration, the swearing in will take place. It's an indoor venue right under the dome of the US Capitol. This was not where it was initially planned, but this is indoors, as you can make out, all our viewers. And earlier it was supposed to be in the open air, right on the mall where all the monuments are, the imposing monuments of Washington, D.C. Well, that was outdoors. There's a very cold spell of weather that is taking place in that region of the US, the Arctic sweep in that is coming in, and at this time outside temperatures are supposed to be around -6 degrees Celsius, although that does not really conveyed. And that's of course the Trump family, some of the children, Barron Trump, over 7 feet tall, moving in to the rotunda as well. We could see in those images. Now, if you look at the kind of legacy that Trump is perhaps going to undo, there is Biden, who has tried to do his utmost to ensure that that does not happen, and also to ensure protection for those who he thought would be targeted later on during the Trump administration. And he's taken those sort of measures even in the final moments, in the final hours of his presidency, of his waning presidency. What do you make of that? Do you think, because we've had promises being made by a person like Bondi, that she will not really go after anyone as such when the Trump administration takes over?
Well, I think, Gautam, it speaks very poorly of the US at this point in time, where political polarization is at such an extreme that some of these things are being talked about. US used to be an exemplar in the kind of the democratic world, and it no longer is increasingly. And I think that's a sad situation to be in. And if you see, on both sides, it has played out very poorly. And I think this idea that somehow Trump administration would target the supporters of Biden or the Democrats or those who do not agree with his views, and therefore the outgoing Democratic administration had to carve out these new ways of protecting them. That tells you how weak the institutional fabric of the country has become. And I think ultimately this will weaken, whichever way you look at it, the institutional frameworks on which American democracy stands. So I think this is a particularly sad moment in that sense. Of course, we had seen what had happened last time, and when there were riots on the Capitol, when Mr. Trump did not concede his defeat. So I mean, we are looking at a gradual weakening of the democratic fabric in the U.S. And I think in some ways, what you were saying earlier about his speech, perhaps Mr. Trump can lay out a positive and forward-looking agenda for his administration and not look back and talk about all the issues, for example, of victimization and of marginalization that he had so cleverly used in his politics, because this certainly will lay the groundwork, at least of bringing the country together. And this should lay the groundwork of bringing the country together, because that's what presidents in their inaugural speeches should do and have tended to do in the past. And so, as you were saying, his first speech was pretty dark, but there is an expectation that perhaps this might be more forward-looking, a speech about the future of America and the way perhaps that the way he wants to bring the country together. That might be a good start for him, because all the issues that you had raised actually have cast a pall over what the democratic sentiment in the country. And as you would have noticed, in DC, for example, there have been demonstrations. Many people have left DC because DC is particularly blue in that sense, and therefore there is a lot of I think back and forth in terms of the democratic mandate here. But of course, Mr. Trump has been elected. He has been elected by a big mandate, and the country has to rally around him, and he has to ensure that the country rallies around him. That should be the mandate to begin with, before he started disrupting anymore.
Yes, certainly. We just saw Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, having a very animated discussion with the tech czars as well there in the Rotunda, the Capitol Rotunda. These are the live images that we're getting you from the venue of the swearing in, the inauguration, so to speak, of Donald Trump and his Vice President J.D. Vance, who has an Indian origin spouse. We never miss to press that point, Dr. Pant. But as far as Donald Trump and U.S. and India relations are concerned, what first thoughts do you have as to how these could be taken forward? Would there be some apprehension concerning the tariff threat that he holds out, or do you think India is right now looking more at the opportunities rather than challenges?
See, I think challenges are well known. So in that sense, we know that there are going to be a lot of issues on which there are divergences, and those divergences will play out. And we know that from our experience of the first term. We know that from our experience of the of what Mr. Trump has said in the last few years. But I think there are enormous opportunities there as well, which perhaps one can think of, and which the government seemingly is working at also, because you do look at Dr. Jaishankar's recent visit to the US, and now he's back. There is going to be Quad meeting, tomorrow, foreign ministers meeting. So there are going to be enormous opportunities, which perhaps, given the lay of the land, given the changing politics in the US, India should be ready to seize, because at the end of the day, all political dispensations, all governments, all administrations come with a baggage. They come with their own sets of challenges. You would recall when Biden was being inaugurated, there were a lot of apprehension in India as to what Mr. Biden would bring, how perhaps his focus on domestic issues in India might derail the relationship, and nothing of that kind happened. So I think because India played its hands very well, and I do think that it is up to India and India's proactive stance on a number of issues that will lay the groundwork for what happens. And as we are witnessing on your screen, there is a legacy here from Clinton to George W. Bush to Mr. Obama to Biden himself, and then to Mr. Trump.
Yes, we can see some of them right now live in the Rotunda. Exactly. They've just been arriving, the former presidents with the former first ladies. Go ahead.
Because all of them have laid the groundwork for India-US relationship. They come from different political ideologies. They come from different parties. They come from, they came with very different agendas. But I think India was one issue on which they all coalesced. And Trump 1.2 also did the same thing. So I think the expectations should be that he would build on his legacy. He would build on the relationship, which many of his policies have been taken for going forward. And I think that India will play its role, and India will continue to look at those opportunities, perhaps much more granularly. That is going to be an issue going forward.
Well, we've seen just now Barack Obama walk in, another former president, and unlike other former presidents who are present there in the rotunda, his spouse isn't there. She had made it clear before the event that she will not be attending it, and there were some whispers about it as well. Again, talking about the need to bridge the divide that is polarizing America. What do you make of this particular consideration?
Yes, I think, but I think some of what Michelle Obama had said during the convention perhaps was, she also went all out against Mr. Trump, and they have perhaps made those differences very, very clear. So I think that is again something that should not happen in a democracy. I think conversations, dialogue between people of different ideologies should continue. And I think we are looking at a very, very polarized American polity. And this is again, if Michelle Obama is absent because of that reason, then I think this also speaks to that challenge of how do you bridge that divide in a country that is split down the middle almost.
Just wanted to make a point and comment about the gentleman who just walked in there. The two judges, one the Chief Justice John Roberts, who will swear in President-elect Donald Trump, and Justice Brett Kavanaugh will be swearing in J.D. Vance, the Vice President, pretty soon, the Vice President-elect. And, in terms of these executive orders that Donald Trump tries to bring in on the very first day, some of them might end up in courts being challenged as well. And already there, as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, it has a conservative majority. So that, again, is something that Trump has already taken care of.
He has, Gautam, but it's also very interesting. You look at the TikTok issue, for example. It started with Mr. Trump in his first term. He started the whole process of banning TikTok through an executive order. It went to the courts. Courts ruled against him. Then you had this issue of in his second term. Now, under Biden, it is the courts that have banned TikTok, and he wants to change that. He's saying that he has given a reprieve to TikTok for at least 3 months. That's what we are hearing. That that he would look at it and through an executive order maybe overturn it. So I think his ability to go all out and to make changes depending on the whims and fancies of his mood is also very interesting. It's not there, maybe there is a logic to what he's saying, but on many of these issues, when you look at how he interacts with the courts, we would see a lot of back and forth. But clearly, there is a conservative majority in the Supreme Court, and that is going to be very helpful for him in a number of ways.
Well, there we can see Baron Trump in the frame again, as though the entire Trump family arriving bit by bit into the rotunda. But we were talking about TikTok. What Trump has done, if he's giving a reprieve to TikTok, is that there's a big caveat there that ownership of at least TikTok's arm in America will have to change hands, and some other investor from within America will have to be brought in who will have controlling stake. And that really changes things fundamentally, or do the Chinese still have that suspected ability to spy on Americans?
No, I think what he's doing is also trying to again use that as a lever, and perhaps he's going to assess and see what the Chinese, how the Chinese respond to this, some kind of an olive branch on TikTok, because again it was supposed to be a blanket ban from today. He has given a reprieve. He's making some demands that this should happen, that should happen. So where do the Chinese land with that would be an interesting thing to watch out for. And TikTok certainly is now becoming a barometer as to how do you evaluate his China policy. And maybe this is the first salvo he has fired, and he's waiting for Chinese response. which we will see in the coming days and months. So I think this is going to be an interesting conversation to assess his China policy, his tech policy, and on a range of fronts. TikTok has become emblematic of that as to how he wants to go about it. He wants greater American ownership. He wants greater American role in the tech industry. He wants greater role for American enterprise. He wants less regulation. And I think all of that is going to impact the way technology companies react. And that's why you see so many of these technology giants here in his
it's quite an interesting
inauguration.
frame. The Trump family bunched with the tech giants, including Elon Musk, and there's everyone in there. There's Mark Zuckerberg, there's Jeff Bezos, there's our guy as well from India, who's running a major tech company, global tech company, and we can see Baron Trump there, who was in Greenland, and that also created quite a flutter, didn't it? I wonder what happened to that. That's not something on the, that's very evidently not on the agenda on day one, it seems.
I don't think that's on the agenda, but certainly Greenland is something that he will return to, because he has been talking about Greenland now for a while. And I think the point there is not so much that he will buy the land or he will invade Greenland. I think the point there is that he wants greater American role in the Arctic. He wants less of external players, particularly Russians and the Chinese, playing a role there, and he wants a greater engagement with the government on American terms. And I think he might just end up getting it, because he has raised the stakes so high that the other side will have to do something about it. So I think we will see a very interesting way in which the Greenland and the Panama Canal issue, both of them, develop.
Yeah, and I saw Justin Trudeau as well in the rotunda somewhere towards the back, trying to melt into a wall. Again, that question of Canada coming up, which is again not something that might be triggered off on day one, but it might start with those tariffs that he's threatened to hike for all Canadian imports, 25% for both Canada and Mexico.
Yes, I think Canada, he has no love lost. Trump has no love lost for Mr. Trudeau or his party, and I think he is going to be in some ways very brutal with the Canadians, particularly this government, Trudeau's government, and Trudeau. And then I think we are also seeing some kind of a response from Trudeau. And even this idea that, and his government and the Canadians themselves saying that, look, we will also retaliate. But ultimately, I think these are all attempts at recalibrating, negotiating what kind of a trade deal he wants with the Canadians, and what can Canadians offer. So I think it's more or less a rebalancing relationship. He wants a rebalance in the relationship. Where he actually ends up with the Canadians, that I think would be something to watch out for. What can the Canadians give? They certainly are doing much more on immigration, on security on the border, etc., where they have ramped up security. But he also wants Canada to do more on defense, etc., which Canadians at this point, perhaps in the short term, would be unable to do. But they will certainly have to rethink their security posture as well.
Yes, we've just seen the First Lady and the spouse of Vice President Harris also walk in. I beg your pardon. We've seen the spouse also walk in there, and handshakes all around, smiles. The rancor of the campaign and the pain of the loss seems to have been forgotten for the moment, because this is a moment of the triumph of American democracy, I guess, Dr. Pant, and it seems that there is a consciousness about ensuring that things go smoothly from here, at least till the time one can afford it.
I think so. I think it's a good start to have that kind of a presence and to have that kind of a solidarity, at least at the top level, where people can come in. I mean, I think it does stand in stark contrast to Mr. Trump doing what he did last time, when he did not really concede and did not really, really congratulate the victor, and so I think, but this time there is certainly an attempt by both sides to be more forward-looking. But again, the proof of the pudding would be in the eating. Particularly, I think what Mr. Trump says in his speech at the inauguration, and what kind of executive orders he signs, etc., in the first few days, in the first few hours, in fact. So I think we'll have to wait and watch for the larger, beyond the optics. But certainly, the optics look good.
Looking at this rotunda, the way the people have gathered around, the crowd does seem thin, and Donald Trump is a man who likes grand entrances and grand moments. He had commented about the strength of the crowds for his inauguration, comparing it to Obama's in the past as well. But this time around, do you think he would find it a bit underwhelming, or he's just focused on what lies ahead?
No, I think he would have much preferred to be on the outside with rows of people watching him and cheering him. His supporters primarily. Now in this rotunda, there are no supporters. This is largely a small crowd of his administration officials, but there is the MAGA crowd is not there cheering him on, which he thrives on that. So I do think that he would have loved to be on the outside. But unfortunately, the weather did not permit, and so I think again the speech that he would give now would carry a lot of weight because that would be his message to his supporters as well, and how that is received outside. I think that would be a big barometer of what happens. But certainly, I think this is a year back, no one expected that he would return, but he has returned triumphantly. And I think this also is in some ways bidding adieu to moment for Mr. Biden, President Biden, and that I think he would miss President Biden, as he has indicated in his recent statements. He particularly feels sorry about, because he would have wanted again to run and to win and to go on a high, but he's going with very low numbers, approval ratings. He's and he could not defend his term. So I think there are some moments here, poignant moments for both, particularly for the Democrats, for Biden administration in particular, and for Kamala Harris also because of the loss. But for Trump, of course, it's a triumphant return against all odds.
Well, definitely, and we're awaiting that moment. I think when the current president for the moment and vice president will make their entrance, perhaps because their spouses have already come in. We've had the former presidents and their former first ladies also coming in. A big part, of course, a man expected to play in this administration is Elon Musk. One of the executive orders is going to be about Doge as well. Do you think this is something that will be sustaining kind of an exercise in terms of cutting down and bringing in efficiency in government, or do you feel that this might be a future source of rancor as well, and problems could crop up for the Trump administration because of this as well?
I think it's a double-edged sword. All Republican governments have talked about the small state, and I think they have all looked at this issue in their own ways, trying to cut down flap, bureaucracy. But I think this is the first time when we are seeing a group of external players being brought in, and particularly Musk type of characters who are mavericks, who will propose at times very interesting ideas, but they can be very extreme in the sense of how do you navigate them through a bureaucratic system, because ultimately bureaucracy has to deliver that bureaucratic cutting. So whether the bureaucracy will accept that, whether the bureaucracy will, how bureaucracy takes that, and how the system allows some of these initiatives to be factored into decision making. I think those are huge issues, and I don't think that there are people, at least those who have been appointed so far in the administration, who have that kind of a link with the bureaucracy, where they can navigate this effectively. So you have some very interesting people in the administration, but if you do not have that connect with the bureaucracy can fire back. Bureaucracy can also respond in its own ways and make life difficult for the administration by not really delivering the outcomes that the administration may want. So I think there are huge issues here, and we will have to wait and watch and see how it evolves. But certainly the ideas and what they present would be interesting to watch out for.
Okay, the first lady to be walking in now, being escorted in as well. So we're getting close to that moment. And when we were talking about how things could play out with the bureaucracy, it was reminding me of the Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister books and the interplay of the politicians and the bureaucracy there, how it led to a lot of hilarity. But again, that is something that is all devoted to levity, which may not be the case in actual running of governments. And that is, of course, the British government, and this is the US one. We'll have to leave it there at the moment. Professor Pant, thank you so much for joining us to talk about these, really big moments as far as global geopolitics is concerned, because that is something that will also be impacted when Trump 2.0 begins. In just a few moments from now, my colleague Ramesh Ramachandran will also be here to take this forward. I'll be, of course, waiting in the wings again to take this way into the night as we have that inauguration taking place and the inaugural speech. Thanks for watching for the moment, leaving you with these live images of the Capitol Rotunda, where the inauguration is set to take place for Trump 2.0.
Ladies and gentlemen, performing "O America," please welcome the Armed Forces Chorus and America's tenor, Christopher D. Macchio. the Honorable Jackie Barber, the Clerk of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Kevin F. McCumber, Mr. John Bessler, Mrs. Kelly Johnson, Mrs. Iris Weinschall Schumer, and Mrs. Jennifer Scalise.